Let's talk about humility and the beginner's mind. This is a principle of always believing that you can still learn more. It has nothing to do with how intelligent you are or how much of an expert you are. You can be the person that knows the most in the world, but you still have that perspective of, I can still learn more. And you can also be the opposite. You can know nothing, but believe that you have nothing to learn. And because of that, your mind is closed up. Let's take a look at these two differences.
To illustrate the beginner's mind, let me start by painting you the opposite picture. Let's say that you're a person with a lot of achievements. You don't need to work anymore. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. You don't need to learn. You've arrived, as they say. You can rest on your laurels, and you can continue life based on your past achievements. This is the precise opposite of humility and the beginner's mind. The beginner's mind is not about the achievements themselves. You can have a lot of them or not at all, and they can be recent or not at all. It's about your attitude itself. It's about not being the type of person that relies on past achievements and that is not willing to put in the work, because those people become detached from reality. They have blind spots, and they can even fall into serious delusions. Do you know that type of person that's, for example, ran a marathon 20 years ago or had a great job 10 years ago, and when you ask them if they can do something like that in the present, they say, oh, I'm sure that I can do it in the present because back in the day, I was so good at it, so I still am in the present for sure. That is someone who is fooling themselves and the opposite of the beginner's mind. The concept of the beginner's mind, or Shoshin from Zen Buddhism, dictates that regardless of your status, achievements, or past, you are always open to learning. It's about never relying on the past. And remember, this is independent of your achievements. Sure, you can have someone with zero achievements that has a beginner's mind and that is eager to learn. But you can also have a master that has had more achievements than anybody else around them and they still have a beginner's mind. So it's not about the achievements, it's just about the attitude. And you may say that having this type of mindset is going to make you vulnerable to an extent. In a way, it's discarding the past. It's constantly discarding it in real time. It's being able to say, regardless of what I've done 10 years ago, regardless of what I've done yesterday, regardless of what I've done a minute ago, I know that I still have to prove myself. Every day, I still have things to learn, and I always will. So you can consider that there are two opposite points of view. So on one hand, there's the person that is full of hubris, that considers themselves the expert, that has nothing to learn, their mind is closed, and they rest on their laurels. On the other hand, you have the person that sees themselves as a beginner, always. They always discard their past achievements, and they are always willing to prove themselves and to try more and learn more. Even if you already are an expert at something, having a beginner's mind will always help you. As we mentioned, having a beginner's mind, as many of these other mindfulness concepts, is going to make you more vulnerable. Not in terms of traits or anything else in self, but in terms of the actions. Because you are going to go from judging yourself based on your past actions, reputation, past deeds, to judging yourself based on the action that you take every day, and considering it a constant requirement for the future. Realizing that the past accomplishments are nothing more than bragging rights and that they don't excuse you from continuing to do the work in the present. So this creates a sense of vulnerability and openness, as if you still have to prove yourself in the present to a degree, and that is supposed to happen. Just like with the person speaking in public, don't fear being nervous, because being nervous means that you're aware and that you're striving to do your best. Instead, you should fear not feeling anything, because when you're too comfortable, that sense that you're taking things for granted or you just don't care, that's the real danger. What are some examples of humility and the beginner's mind? The first is athletes. Even Olympic medalists try to beat their own records. They don't let past achievements define them. They never think, I'm done. They always see themselves as a beginner and they are always striving for more. The second is discarding your best material in order to force yourself to come up with more. This is, for example, what comedian Louis C.K. does, for example. Every year, he takes his best material and he discards it to force himself to come up with new quality material constantly. He never rests on past achievements. In fact, he discards them in order to force himself to constantly put in the effort. And the third example is seeing yourself as a person of action in terms of your identity. What I mean by this is, if you derive your identity from an achievement, for example, if you say, I'm a PhD, that's who I am, or I'm someone who ran a marathon, or I'm someone who earned a certain prize, that just leads to stagnation because you don't need anything else. Your whole identity comes from a past thing that you did. But if you see yourself as a person of action, if your value comes from constantly taking more action, then it stimulates you to continue performing. Your identity is not based on one specific thing that already happened. It's based on your constant effort in the present and future. What are our key takeaways here? The first is that the beginner's mind is about viewing yourself always as a beginner. You're always open to learning more, to proving yourself more, regardless of what you've achieved in the past. It doesn't mean that you are a beginner, it just means that you have the mindset of one. A beginner's mind will put emphasis on the present instead of the past. It doesn't invalidate the past, it just means that the past by itself is not enough. Having a beginner's mind is going to make you more vulnerable because you are going to drop your shield. You'll be open to proving yourself, to learning more, to doing more, and this is good because it forces you to come to terms with and accept your own insecurities.
So as you see, being humble and having a beginner's mind will help you a lot in terms of mindfulness because you will always be curious and you are never going to be just closed up and just closed to new things and new experiences.